Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to completely demystify containers and orchestration. Look, if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the sheer number of buzzwords flying around modern infrastructure, trust me, you are in the exact right place. We are going to break all of this down step by step, starting from absolute first principles and going right up to the doorstep of professional certification. So, let's just dive right in.
Okay, I think every single person watching this has either lived this exact moment or you've been on the receiving end of this classic excuse. Well, it works on my machine, right? It's basically the universal IT nightmare. You've got this application, it runs absolutely flawlessly in your local development environment, but the exact second you push it to staging or production, it just completely crashes and burns. And why does this happen? Well, the root cause is almost always that the underlying dependencies, the OS libraries, the random configurations, they just differ wildly between different machines. These mismatched environments lead to super unpredictable, frustrating failures that literally waste countless hours of engineering time.
So how do we actually fix this? Well, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the pre-container nightmare. Second, VMs versus containers. Third, we'll break down how containers actually work. Fourth, managing chaos with Kubernetes. And finally, your roadmap to certification.
All right, Section 1, the pre-container nightmare, the root cause of unpredictable failures.
The ultimate solution to this deployment nightmare is what we call the container promise. And the goal here is just elegantly simple. Instead of tossing your code over the wall to a server and crossing your fingers that the server has all the right software installed to run it, you package everything your app needs, the code, the dependencies, the system libraries, the whole shebang, into one single highly portable unit. Because absolutely everything is bundled together in that unit, it is guaranteed to run identically anywhere you drop it. The dark days of "it works on my machine" completely disappear, because the specific machine underneath essentially becomes irrelevant.
Moving on to Section 2, VMs versus the container. Heavy isolation versus lightweight efficiency. Now, to truly appreciate containers, we have to look at the massive leap in efficiency they offer compared to the old industry standard, virtual machines. VMs, by design, emulate entire hardware systems, which means every single one has to boot up its own heavy, clunky operating system kernel. They eat up gigabytes of RAM and can take literal minutes to start up. Containers, on the flip side, just share the host OS kernel. They run as isolated user space processes. And because they totally skip booting a whole separate OS, they only need mere megabytes of RAM and they start in seconds. It's a game changer. They're incredibly fast, hyper-efficient, and easily portable.
And it gets better, because containers aren't just these giant monolithic blocks of data. They're actually built in stacked layers. Your application layer sits right on top of your libraries, your system calls, and your base environment. Why does this matter? Well, when you update an app, you don't have to rebuild and download the entire thing from scratch over the network. The layers that haven't changed are automatically cached and reused. This ingenious layered approach gives you vastly faster builds and significantly smaller data transfers, which makes your entire development cycle incredibly agile.
Let's hit Section 3, how containers actually work, unveiling the Linux kernel magic.
I hear people talk about containers all the time, as if they're these mystical black boxes. Spoiler alert, there is absolutely no magic here. They rely entirely on fundamental, pre-existing core Linux kernel features. We're literally just utilizing the operating system's own built-in tools to provide both isolation and resource control. So let's pop the hood and look at the two most crucial features that actually make a container a container.
First up on the tool belt, we have Namespaces. This is the foundational feature that creates the absolute illusion that your container is running on its own dedicated machine. Namespaces isolate processes. By leveraging this Linux feature, every single container gets its own independent process ID, its own network interfaces, its own file system mounts, and its own user environments. You can almost think of a namespace as a virtual cluster hidden inside a broader cluster. It's absolutely crucial for isolating different teams or projects so they literally never step on each other's toes. But hey, isolation alone isn't enough, right? We also need strict control. And that is exactly where cgroups, or control groups, come into play. Imagine if a random bug in one single container caused it to suddenly chew up 100% of your server's CPU. Your whole system goes down. Cgroups act as the necessary governor here. They actively limit and monitor exactly how much CPU, memory, and input-output bandwidth any single container is allowed to touch. This entirely prevents resource hogging and makes sure all your lightweight containers play nicely together on the exact same host OS.
Which brings us to Section 4, managing chaos with Kubernetes, orchestrating stateless applications.
Because look,
Once you scale up from running a couple containers on your laptop to hundreds or thousands of them in a production environment, you are going to need a seriously powerful orchestrator. A Kubernetes deployment is your best friend here. Here's how it works in 3 steps. Step 1, you just declare your desired state. You tell Kubernetes, hey, I want exactly 3 replicas of this container running at all times. In step 2, a feature called a replica set takes over. Its entire job in life is to constantly monitor the environment and ensure exactly that specified number of replicas are active. If a pod crashes, boom, it instantly spins up a new one to replace it. Finally, step 3, when it's time to push an update, Kubernetes uses what's called rolling updates. It intelligently spins up the new updated pods before it gracefully shuts down the old ones, which means you get totally seamless, zero downtime deployments.
Finally, Section 5, your roadmap to certification, becoming a Kubernetes expert.
Now that you understand the mechanics, if you actually want to prove your expertise to the industry, here is a highly actionable roadmap for you. Spend weeks 3 and 4 really nailing the basics, getting hands-on with Kubernetes, pods, and deployments. Then, in weeks 5 and 6, you gotta go deeper into cluster management. We're talking networking, storage, and access controls. By weeks 7 and 8, you shift your entire focus to making things production-ready. Think observability, security hardening, and GitOps. All of this focused effort culminates in the industry gold standards, the CKA and CKAD certification exams. Let me tell you, these credentials do a lot more than just look good on a resume. They definitively prove that you know how to master the chaos.
So we've walked through the absolute nightmare of mismatched environments, the heavy, clunky cost of virtual machines, the lightweight brilliance of Linux kernel features, and the pure automation power of Kubernetes. Now, I want to leave you with a question to really think about when you look at your own infrastructure today. Are your applications still trapped in that heavy, unpredictable past of the "it works on my machine" era? Or are you ready to take the roadmap we mapped out today, kick off your certification journey, and orchestrate those apps securely into the future? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.